This is why Xabi Alonso is Europe's most sought-after manager. There's a sense that Xabi Alonso has always been destined to be a great manager. He had an illustrious playing career, winning the Champions League, the Spanish title, the German title, and the World Cup and European Championships with Spain. He worked under the finest managers of his generation: Carlo Ancelotti, Rafa Benitez, Jose Mourinho, Pep Guardiola. That's not a bad set of references. But for all that, it's always seemed he would go straight to the top. After retiring as a player, Alonso really took his time. He did his badges, he worked with the youth teams at Real Sociedad, the club where he'd initially come through, and he didn't leap at the first available opportunity of a senior job. He rejected several clubs before joining Bayer Leverkusen, judging that it offered the perfect environment for a young, ambitious, but crucially still learning manager to take his first step. It turned out, as with everything about Xabi Alonso, he made exactly the right choice. In his first season at Leverkusen, he took a team that was languishing in the relegation zone of the Bundesliga back up to the top half of the table. And in his second, he won the title, giving the club its first German championship in its 120-year history. It's not hard to see why clubs are so keen on him. He played attractive, tactically astute, adventurous football, but it retained certain core elements. He wants his team to dominate the ball. That's no surprise to anybody who watched Alonso as a player. But he's also shown an ability to make use of players who thrive on the counter-attack, like Jeremy Frimpong, the Dutch right-back, who's been one of the standout players at Leverkusen under Alonso. He's also got the best out of Victor Boniface, one of that rare breed of true number 9s in European football. And he showed that he could fashion a team that could take on much richer, much more powerful clubs and win. With his stock rising, obviously the offers started to pour in. The two clubs that came closest to hiring him were two of his former teams, Liverpool and Bayern Munich. And he's never hidden the fact that he developed a really strong bond with the clubs he played for. Liverpool found out last November that Jurgen Klopp intended to leave at the end of last season. And obviously Alonso was high on their list. He looked like the perfect fit, someone who had already had a bond with the club's fans, someone who was at the start of his managerial career, and someone who looked like they had a particular gift for the job. But Liverpool's sporting hierarchy learned pretty quickly that Alonso wasn't especially interested in moving. He'd given his word to Leverkusen that he'd give them another season, and he had no intention of breaking that. Bayern were a little bit more persistent. They'd been surprised by the fact that Thomas Tuchel, who'd been in charge last season, had decided not to continue. And they made it very clear very quickly that Alonso was their first choice to replace him. They got the same response, that he intended to stay at Leverkusen and see them through a season, not just as German champions, but in the Champions League. But the crucial thing, I think, for Bayern, for Liverpool, and for Real Madrid is the bond he has not only with the fans, but with the club hierarchy. At all three, Alonso was an immensely popular member of the team. He's seen as someone who can connect the boardroom with the terraces and do it almost instantly. For any manager at any of those teams where the pressure is so high and the need to deliver is so immediate, that's something really precious. The risk, of course, is that managerial careers work on timings. Liverpool and Bayern may well not be available at the end of this season because Liverpool appointed Arne Slot when Alonso made himself unavailable, and Slot has started relatively well in the Premier League. And much the same can be said for Vincent Kompany at Bayern. He might only have been the club's 8th or 9th choice for the managerial job, but early results are really encouraging, and he looks like he has made a real difference to a team that seemed to be listing a little bit last season. If neither of those clubs are available, it would seem to limit Alonso's options. Where he might get lucky is that one of them, arguably the biggest of them all, may well be. Carlo Ancelotti's second spell at Real Madrid has brought, as it always does, Champions League titles, Spanish crowns, endless success. Nobody at Real Madrid is urging Carlo Ancelotti to leave, step aside, so that Xabi Alonso can come through. But if Ancelotti decides that this summer is the time to step away, it seems clear that Alonso is the obvious successor. By that stage, he'll have another year's experience, he'll have taken Leverkusen into the Champions League and hopefully deep into the Champions League. He may well feel that he's ready then, not just for another step up, but for possibly the biggest step of them all.